Ever since the dawn of time, there have been countless movie adaptations made. Cinderella, To Kill a Mockingbird, Blade Runner, and many, many more. Some people love them, some people hate them, but what you might not realise is that sometimes, among those that hate them, are the actual authors themselves.
And there are an awful lot of things about that movie that I think are flawless and beautiful and just marvelous. And then there are other times when I feel as though I'd given Stanley Kubrick a live grenade and he heroically threw his body on it.
Stephen King is no stranger to having his movies adapted. A quick Google will show you that he currently sits at a whopping 60 movies alone, probably with more to come. There have been a few hits, and definitely a few misses, but I'm here to talk about the most famous of all.
The Shining!
The Shining. The Shining.
In 1980, Stanley Kubrick released The Shining, widely accepted as one of the greatest horror films of all time. The film is atmospheric, chilling, and absolutely iconic, with great performances from Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. All these come together to make a great final product, right? Not if you're Stephen King. The book, sharing the same name, was released in 1977 and was King's third novel, firmly cementing him as the horror author we know him as today. The novel follows Jack Torrance, a struggling writer who takes a job as an off-season caretaker in the famous Overlook Hotel. Jack, his wife, and his son move out there, and soon enough, some strange supernatural events start to occur. This is where the similarities end.
Whatever movies Stanley made, what I love about his work is they are completely conscious. You may like them, you may not like them, you may say, well, what about this, that, or the other thing? But, you know, everybody pretty much acknowledges he's the man.
King and Kubrick right out the gate did not gel well with what was the driving force behind the main character of Jack. King wrote Jack to be an all-round good guy, but because of the cosmic forces of The Shining and the Overlook Hotel itself, they possess him and turn him evil. However, in the film, Kubrick didn't really want to play off of the supernatural theme, and instead opted to make the evil that Jack has present from the start of the film. An interesting side note here, King has talked about a phone call between him and the director about making the film. In it, Kubrick said that he thinks that ghost stories are fundamentally optimistic because they portray existence beyond the all-consuming barrier of death. I don't know about you, but when I'm talking about ghost stories, optimistic is definitely not a word that springs to mind. And that difference in mindsets has given us two wildly different interpretations of the same story, which has often begged the question,
I feel that the thing had to be done because although Kubrick made an interesting film out of it, the film wasn't quite accurate. He didn't follow the book as it should have done. He cut out the final chapter for one thing.
oh dear, another film by Kubrick? This time we have another cult classic. Like before, I'm sure this film needs no introduction, but to those who are uninitiated, A Clockwork Orange depicts a dystopian Britain filled with ultraviolence, Moloko Plus, and a little bit of old Ludwig van, to create a truly uncomfortable experience that has captivated audiences since its release in 1971. What's interesting to note about this particular adaptation is that not only does the author not like the film, but he doesn't like the original book either. The novel was released in 1962 and was received very well. This firmly catapulted Burgess's name into stardom. However, reflecting on his book, Burgess seemed to think that writing it in the first place was a mistake. The film made it easy for readers of the book to misunderstand what it was about, and the misunderstanding will pursue me until I die.
There was a period when I was attacked daily over the telephone or in the press for fomenting violence. Violence was all my fault.
The original edition of the book was first published in Britain, with a total of 21 chapters. However, when the book was going to be brought over to America, the publishers in the US wanted to remove the last chapter. The final chapter is when we see the redemption for the main character Alex. Over the course of the book, Alex goes on a notoriously violent rampage full of illicit details I won't go into here. And in that 21st chapter, Alex sees the error of his ways and starts to put his life on the right track. A fairly good moral to end on, wouldn't you agree? Not to the US publishers. They thought the book would do better without that redemption. and to be fair to them, they were right. Kubrick has stated when making the film he based it on the US edition, saying that the 21st chapter was an extra chapter, and gave it no real consideration. And that is where Burgess's issue lies. Without that extra chapter, he feared that people would view the film simply as a glorification of violence. But it must be said, he did have respect for the film too. When Burgess went to a private viewing of the film when it was first released, he thought it was incredible, and, writing for the listener, even went so far as to say it was technically brilliant, thoughtful, relevant, poetic, and mind-opening. It was only as the years went on that Burgess grew less fond of the work.
Good morning, Hank. It's the hottest day of the year so far, and you know what summertime means. It means it's time for us to use our critical analysis skills to read with thoughtfulness and depth.
Alright Kubrick, we'll let you off the hook now. This time, we're going to take a slightly different approach. This author hated the adaptations so much, he vowed never to let another one of his works be adapted to screen again. In 1949, Salinger had his short story, Uncle Wiggily in Connecticut, adapted into My Foolish Heart. The film was a box office flop, and differed greatly from the original source material. So, after this rather shambolic attempt to adapt Salinger's work, he never let another one of his films come to the big screen. Not through lack of Hollywood meddling, mind you. Over the years, countless heavy hitters from the industry have been knocking on Salinger's door to pitch their idea for an adaptation. Samuel Goldwyn, Billy Wilder, and Steven Spielberg to name a few, and even the likes of Marlon Brando, Jack Nicholson, and Leonardo DiCaprio pining after the main role. Salinger was one tough nut to crack. Sadly, he passed in 2010, and the rights are now with his estate, and they have been true to his wishes. After all, there are plenty of other stories to adapt. Who knows what great work will be turned to the big screen next? Or it might just be treated to another iteration of A Star is Born. Thanks for watching.